Hey, thanks, man.
There's a little bit more left in there.
What? So good.
All right.
This is some fine. There's some like fine grain.
Yeah.
It's actually my favorite part.
Really?
When you get to, when you get to the end of something.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Again. So basically, we were coming together today to bring you this video. So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this world. And thank you for choosing to watching us entertain you. So what this is a video podcast that we're hoping takes off and makes us millions of dollars. No, I'm just kidding.
Tons of cash.
Tons of cash.
Stacks
just like straight
of
cash.
cash.
I'll give you the address at the end to send straight cash to. No, that's we basically wanted to come together on this video and spread a message. The name of this series is going to be called All In Good Faith. Where that ultimately comes from is the phrase "all in good fun."
Yeah.
It's funny because when me and Joe were kind of talking about this idea, and he was like, "What do you want to name it?" And All in Good Faith just kind of came out, and he was like, "I absolutely love it," and I was like, "Don't really know where it came from, but I guess it just kind of came to me." But ultimately, it's and you'll see it's kind of split up. You'll see All In is hyphenated, and then comma Good Faith, because ultimately that's what I feel like it has to be. Number one, you got to be committed to it. You got to be all in. And everything you do, you got to do with faith, and it's got to be good faith, and not selfish.
Amen.
So, and ultimately, that's where this came from. We wanted to spread some light on the world. Just feel like a lot of what we've been seeing has just been negative, especially today's age when it comes to political views and unfortunately the shootings that are happening out there. We just feel like you're never going to get rid of the hate. You're never going to get rid of it. But the more you can combat it, the better we are. I mean, we're soldiers out here, right, on the front line. And if we can combat it with as much positive as we possibly can, then at least we can keep down some of that negative and hopefully spread a positive light.
Right.
So ultimately, you don't know who I am. Probably don't. I mean, you might know him. He's a lot more famous than I am. This guy is. But my name is Steve Irwin. No relation to the crocodile hunter. I am a junior though. My dad is Steve Irwin Sr., but not the crocodile hunter. I currently work at a telecommunications company for my day job. I've been there a little over 13 years now. I also on the side am a photographer, so that's where I kind of fell into my passion. We'll talk about that in a bit. And I have a beautiful, loving wife at home, 2 rescue dogs that are just absolutely crazy and nuts. But that's basically my life in a nutshell. Like I said, work telecommunications, my photography work, and outside of that, I also do some volunteer work where I can and where I can help. Other than that, I'll turn it over to you, Joe.
And a fantastic human being to boot.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So my name is Joe Buchanan.
Blushing.
I'm a Jewish Americana touring artist. I spend most of my time on the road visiting communities and leading an original Americana style Shabbat service. For those of you who don't know what Americana is, I feel like I need to say it's like imagine country music and like roots rock and roll had a baby and it was raised by their cousin Bluegrass and their other cousin Folk, and then like Uncle Blues would like take the baby to Six Flags. Like that's Americana music. So that's what I do. And I do concerts and tour dates and all that good stuff, and really try everything I can to spread the kind of message we're going to talk about today through music and through faith and talking about faith. I'm married. As of this year, it'll be 19 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you, brother. Stephen took the pictures of my renewal of vows on my 18th wedding anniversary, and so good.
Awesome.
And I got a young son who's fixing to go off to college, so I don't know what I did right, but I did something right.
Hey, there we go. Well, we'll talk about how we learned to do right today.
Yes.
So ultimately, one of the things that we talk about, and let me give a little backstory about how we met. So I had taken a new position where I had to travel for training, and it was one of the flights, I believe it was here to, and I was thinking back that day when we had the conversation. I can't remember if it was here to Dallas or here to Nashville.
It was one of them.
It was one of them because then you're going either east or back down to like Alabama, and I can't remember where exactly it was. So, but anyways, I'd seen Joe early in the morning, not too early, about 9-ish, I'd say. This guy's not a 5 o'clock kind of person, not an early bird.
Don't do it.
But I'd seen him come in, and I'm still kind of waking up myself and just gathering all my stuff and just making sure I'm good to go. And he comes in wearing the hat and has his guitar with him, and I was like, this dude definitely is a performer, So I'm just gonna I stand back and watch a lot, no matter what it is that I do, I observe. And he goes out there and he's talking to a couple different people and just kind of chatting it up, and I was like, man, this dude's had way too much coffee or he's just a social butterfly or both, whatever it may be. But both. But ultimately you're like, man, I was like, I don't know, because okay, let's say this too. When you get on a flight, you never know who you're going to sit next to, and you could ultimately sit next to someone that's going to absolutely drive you crazy. Or you never know what you're gonna get on a flight, right? It's roulette,
Right.
And so sure enough, I get on a flight and Joe's like, hey man, can I sit next to you? And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, I welcome anything. It doesn't bother me one bit. So we start chit chatting, and I come to find out he lives a couple blocks away from my parents, in the area I grew up in Sagemont. And then the guy next to us lived like a couple streets over or something, and we're like, oh man, we got the whole neighborhood on here, on this Southwest flight. But yeah, it was just all of Sagemont. So shout out to Sagemont. But yeah, we're gonna take a raise of hands and see who else was from Sagemont on that flight.
That was a cool moment too, because I remember we're sitting there chatting, and this guy across the aisle was like, "Hey, I'm from there," and we're like, "Hey," and another dude's like, "Yeah, me too." So good, so good.
So shout out to Sagemont, Southeast Houston, represent.
What?
But yeah, from there we he told me a little bit about what he did. Actually gave me a CD that I couldn't play in my rental car because it didn't have a CD player. So all the excitement that I had went right out the window once I got that rental car in Chicago. Thanks a lot, Enterprise, but whatever. On top of that, we exchanged information. He saw some of my photography work and said, hey, I'd love to work with you in the future. That led to actually us doing some post-Harvey work together. And then from there, went on to do his wedding. Mm-hmm. And which was an honor to be a part of. Thank you so much. Still, like it was, and I think I even went up to y'all afterwards and told you guys thank you that it was an experience that I'd never been a part of, and it meant a lot to me to kind of, and for you to be able to choose me to be a part of that moment with you, and that means a lot.
Thanks, man. Took my favorite picture that I have of my wife and I was coming down the aisle and just laughing like a couple of loons. And it was a great shot.
Yeah, you were laughing out loud. Both y'all had your mouths wide open. It was fun. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was just
we're a laughy couple.
Yeah, there was no other way to explain it than fun. But on top of that, from there, gonna did his promotional stuff that you might have seen out there now, and looking to do album photos for his next album that's gonna be hitting here soon. So we'll talk about how you can find us a little bit later on, but definitely keep in mind that you want to support his next album because his first album was awesome.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate that.
But going on from there, running out of your coffee.
I am, and I feel like we should tell people what this is. So we're at the Preamble Bar.
Yes.
And this is also where we took a lot of pictures and stuff. Just a beautiful, gorgeous bar. If you're in the Houston area, come to Preamble, kick back. It's just an amazing place. But we have these cups that you can't see the contents. And we have this beautiful backdrop, so I feel like we should tell people. And I can't ever pronounce the name of this coffee, so I'm going to...
Okay, so it's Ethiopian Yirgachov.
Yirgachov?
Yeah, Yirgachov. And
awesome.
This is French pressed, so you get a little bit more of those oils, more of that body. It's so super fancy. Delicious. It has a lot of flavor to it.
Great.
And it's in Yeti mugs, I promise, so there's no alcohol, but they're fancy Yeti mugs. But yeah, last time we were drinking out of like those thermos plastic cups.
Yeah.
Was like,
which was still cool.
Yeah,
it was like camp.
I felt like we needed to like have a fire or something and talk about it. But no, this so if we get amped up and we get excited, just know that we have a lot of coffee in us. Neither one of us have consumed any alcohol at this point. It's only 10:25 in the morning, so we're sober. at least for another hour or so. Just kidding. But yeah, once again, thanks for shouting out to Preamble. This place is awesome. This place is amazing. As you can see, all the high-end liquor on this back wall here. You just wouldn't believe this place. It's got a wonderful lounge feel to it. It's just great all around. Live music, live
Good
performances, good people.
Really good people.
Thank you, Josh and Preamble, for letting us use this location to be able to film this at. We hope to do a lot more in the future, wherever this goes. And we're just really excited to be here, and I'm excited to have you here with me, Joe. And thank you
Thanks,
for being
brother.
a part of this.
I'm excited to be here with you. This is quite a treat.
So ultimately, we are going to dig into kind of faith, is I think one of the first topics we talked about. We want to hit on. Next, we're really going to kind of talk about our passion, basically how he found his music, how I found photography. And we're basically just going to kind of talk about things that affected us during that time frame and what kind of led us to both, and talk about some personal stories. Once again, when we talk about faith, I'm not saying that we're trying to push our faith on either one of you. You have someone that is Catholic, and then Joe practices Judaism, so we're completely different beliefs, but we share that we want to spread a positive light to the world.
I love that you just said that. I love that you said that. That was not, that we didn't talk about saying that. I love that you said that. Two different faiths that are very different, but they live in the same neighborhood.
Sure.
Right? We're neighbors. We're in two different homes, but we take care of the same street. You know. I love that you said that, man. Just appreciate that. Awesome.
Well, let's go straight into it from there. So, what does faith mean to you?
Oh, well. So there's Judaism, right, and the Jewish approach to, that relationship with God. But on a very just me personal level, faith is it's a twofold answer for me. It on the one hand defines the essence of the connection to something greater than myself, right? The connection to God, the relationship with God, and what that is all about, right? What I believe from a very spiritual standpoint. And also at the same time, it's a trust, not hope, right? Not I hope this works out, or I have hope that it will, which for me sometimes indicates that there's a possibility that it won't go well, right? I have hope that the gas is going to last till I get home, right? Versus I have faith that the gas is going to last. And that, for me, indicates trust. I have faith in God. I have faith in people. I have faith in individuals. I have faith in our ability to make good choices and make the right choices and crawl out of dark places and be the best versions of ourselves that we can be. And I have faith that we help other people do that. So it's all very trusted without doubt, right? And so that defines my relationship with God, but also relationship with the world in general. I have a lot of faith in the world. So that's what faith means to me.
And ultimately, I agree wholeheartedly with your whole explanation. And talking about the world, and like I said, just kind of backtracking on why we decided to do this, it's just there is a lot of what's going on in the world right now that is not positive. And there's a lot of people out there that we feel need faith. And I'd say both of us are at two pretty decent spots in our life right now.
Compared to how things might have been.
How things might have been, or you'll hear us talk about our past in a little bit and where we were. So we just kind of wanted to use this as a step, especially with faith, to let anybody know if they're going through something that there's this too shall pass. Like it'll
also love that you just said that. One of my favorite phrases.
So it won't be the same. It could be a whole another bag of not so good stuff, but it'll be different, and you'll overcome that previous stuff, and then you'll get to a point where that stuff isn't there. But that's part of life. It's going to come, and it's going to come when you least expect it. We'll talk about that in a little bit, how we kind of picked ourselves, or how we had help getting ourselves out of that ultimately.
That's kind of the key.
Yeah, it's kind of the key.
The key thing.
So in terms of faith, to me, when you were talking about a higher power, and same way I have my relationship with God,
right.
Which is up to me, but ultimately faith is, and we talked a little bit about this. It's love. I have faith and love. I feel like you can't have those two not, coincide with each other. But faith in humans, like faith that we're gonna do the right thing, or somewhere in us, like, there's bad things and there's bad people out there, but that doesn't make them necessarily a bad person. They're misguided souls, and I think we've talked about that before too. But ultimately, it's you have to look at the light. You have to find the light, and sometimes the light's hard to see, but you got to search for it. And that's what faith is. And I think sharing that with everybody and having faith in someone, when you even just hear that term, having faith in Joe, to me that means, dude, I just put all my trust in you. Like, I know that there's something you're going to go out there and you're just going to kill it, to 110%. And with your next album, like, I just know you're going to kill it. I have complete faith in your next album. But,
Thanks,
things of that nature. It's just how we pick each other up, and you have to be able to lean on that yourself, because if you don't, I won't be able to tell that to someone. I can't believe that knowingly. If I don't believe that myself. So it's kind of one of those things, like, you have to be able to make yourself happy before you can make anybody else happy. And if you don't have that faith, you can't share that faith. So
start with you.
Perfect. Yep, exactly.
That's great.
So how's faith helped you through your tough times, or if you want to describe what your tough times are first?
Yeah, so, the person that I am right now, I can say, yes, I've always been me, but if when I look in a mirror, if I were to see that other version of myself, it's almost completely unrecognizable. The way I even look at the world around me has changed so dramatically. So I grew up with a belief in God, but a struggle with the definition of that relationship with God. And I'm not trying to blame my parents here, but I started to think that I was just a broken individual, right? That there was something inherently wrong with me. I was going to screw up all the time. I was going to make mistakes because that's just who I am. And it just kept going down, down, down. And as a kid, so super dangerous. As a very young person, trying to figure out who am I? And the only answers I was coming up with was, I was a screw up. I was worthless. I had no inherent value whatsoever. And I believed in God, and I believed that God was good, but I didn't believe that I was worth that time.
Yeah.
I was some sort of mistake, and I wasn't worthy of the whole idea of creation and all this good stuff. So,
real quick, you made a statement when we were talking about this before. Parents use a term that can really define where you go with that, and it's what's wrong with you when you make a mistake.
Yeah.
And that can really start to hurt your self-worth.
Yeah.
And especially if you hear it a lot. And I don't think it's intentional. I don't think parents go, "Oh my God, I'm gonna damage you years later."
Right. No,
watch this.
Not at all. Yeah.
But it's just something that comes out of our mouth, and it's just something that we've heard, and our parents may even heard it from their parents. But you made a comment to that once, and that's like, I completely see that how it can be. It hurts your self-worth.
Yeah. Well, you're already, kids a lot of times they think that the world revolves around them, because the only thing they see is how they are affecting the people around them, how the adults are responding to them, and what they're experiencing. So their world isn't big enough yet to step back out of themselves, right? So everything is, how does it relate to me? And that's not selfish. That's just figuring out who you are.
Right.
And so you hear the phrase, what's wrong with you? And you can do one of two things. You can go, I completely made a mistake, no big deal, I'll self-correct. Or you can go, I don't know, what is wrong with me? And that's where I went. And I went down that road hard, and the more I did that, the more validation I found everywhere. You go looking for the bad, you're going to find it. You go looking for monsters, you're going to find monsters. If you're looking for villains, you're going to find them. And it's so much louder than the good, and it was drowning out everything. I grew up, went down just dark roads as a teenager, and found my place, found myself in a spot as an adult where I was dangerously overweight. I was eating everything in sight, eating late at night. I was barely getting any sleep. I was smoking 2.5 packs a day. I was dipping when I wasn't smoking. It was absolute nightmare fuel, and I was being hospitalized for my heart. I was taking nitro pills like in my late 20s. It was a horrible situation. I was very close to the grave. And my wife had just loved me enough to and shook me enough times and opened that door enough times that she helped pull me out of a very dark place. And then, so that filled a hole, right? And then she drops the bombshell on me 13 years into our marriage. We're outside the Holocaust Museum in DC, and she says, you've been trying to figure out your relationship with God. I want to get in touch with my faith, my people's faith. And I'm like, who are your people? Like, nobody says that. And she's like, I'm Jewish. And I'm like, how'd you get Jewish? And she's like, I've been Jewish. How did you not know? And I'm like, why would I know? She never talked about it. And then she explained, mom was Jewish and how that related to her, which I didn't believe until I read it. And then she's like, our son's Jewish too. And I'm like, does he know? And she's like, no, but we should tell him. So we started studying Judaism, and everybody has a path, right? Everybody has an answer. Everybody has something that's there for them. The thing you're seeking is also seeking you. And I think this was seeking me, and through my wife. And so she introduced me to Judaism. We started studying it. It answered everything for me spiritually and filled that other vacancy that I had in my life. Yeah. First there was me, and my wife worked on me. She loved me enough to do it. And then the relationship with God. And so both of those things getting patched. And it was like a weight, this huge weight just left. Yeah. And I went through the conversion process. They didn't have to. And now, now I do music full time, which I didn't expect to be doing. Yeah. And that trust in God, that trust in what my wife was saying, believing what she was saying, I had to believe it enough and have enough trust in her that I could say, she's right, which was the hardest thing in the world when you are so comfortable with beating yourself up and just wounding yourself emotionally, when there's that comfort in it, to be able to step out of it and go, I love this person and I believe them and I need to do something with this. Yeah. And if it wasn't for her, and it wasn't for my son, I love my son. We had this moment where I was trying to quit smoking and I was just failing miserably at it, and he didn't know that I had picked it back up again. And he was very young and he was so proud, and I knew that I was still smoking. Yeah. And I wanted to quit again. It was that whole, I'll just get through this pack, Yeah. He reaches in my pocket innocently. We're in line for the movies, and there's that pack of cigarettes in there, and he knew it, and I knew it, and it was heartbreaking. Yeah. And a lot of darkness, but enough light and paying attention to it and seeing it is what helped pull me out of it. So now I didn't have a beard back then. I certainly didn't do music back then, and now that's the goal of the music, is to tell people you're okay. Yeah. You're all right. There's nothing wrong with you. You can get out of this. Like, whatever it is, you can get out of it.
For sure.
So that's what faith did for me.
Absolutely.
What about you, man? Let's talk about you.
So a couple different times, it's kind of rocked my world. I feel like, so when I was younger, before I met my wife, I'd gotten to a really bad drinking point in my life, where it was basically like binge drinking. Like I set out first. These are horrible goals. Family, don't hate me after this. But I'm better now. So, but basically, I was in just a bad spot, and my self-confidence was at an all-time low, and I decided, hey, you know what? I'm gonna drink for 30 days straight and see if I can get drunk every day for 30 days. And then from there, it went from 30 days to 60 days. And, I was actually going to push it to 90 days, which I'm glad I didn't, because I probably would have died. But a buddy of mine at the time was basically like, hey, you're not gonna push this past 60. Like, it's not going to happen. And so he stopped me. But even then, I really didn't change. And it wasn't until that, right around that time, a little bit after that, I had met who is my now wife, she, it was just a companionship and a love, and she wanted to spend time with me, and I wanted to spend time with her, and it was, before the alcohol, and spending time with alcohol was just so easy, it's like, it was a no-brainer. Like, I had the money, I had the free time, then why not drink? I also smoked, and then drinking and getting out of places at 1, 2 in the morning. The only places that are open are fast food joints, so you're killing a bunch of fast food. So at the same time, I'm putting on massive amounts of weight and not really noticing it until the point where I'm going to find a new belt for work, and I realized, like, I'm buying a size 50 belt. So it's that was pretty mind-blowing at that point in time. Like, I didn't realize that I'd gotten up there, and it kind of blew my mind. And it was, thanks to her that, when we first met, she was going to a personal trainer a couple days a week. Like she was smart with what she did, and, still don't know why she loves me. Or why she even agreed to go out with me, and still mind-numbing to me. But yeah, I was at a really rough spot, and had she not come into my life at that point, and that's where I think it comes to faith, man. Like and you got to be able to see what's really there and what's really in front of you. And had she not come into my life at that point in time, I don't know what dark hole I would have been going down next. So now we are. This year would be 5 years that we've been married.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mazel tov.
Yeah, and then, but another time that it kind of hit me pretty bad was about a year, and it was almost about a year ago now, or between a year and a half and a year ago, because it kind of started in kind of domino effect. But I was, we were talking about this earlier. I was in great physical shape, working out with my personal trainer, and I had hurt a pretty critical muscle that kind of took me out, and it took me from finally saying, because it took a lot for me to say, hey, I want to change my life, because my dad and all my brothers, my dad's side of the family, they're big guys, and it's so easy for me to go that route.
Sure.
But I don't want to. Like, there's history of high blood pressure, things in that side of the family, and I was like, I want to take every chance I can to cut that out. So I really made a dedication to my workout ethic and working with my buddy. That's a personal trainer, and just killed it and was on another level.
Nice.
And probably the best physical shape I've ever been in my life. And then I got hurt. So immediately you go from doing something 4 to 5 times a week that you're just completely motivated about because you're seeing results and you're seeing it through, and you're
you make me want to go work out now. Like, I'm ready. Let's go to the gym.
So your complete lifestyle changed, and then you get cut off, and
Right.
it's depressing, and I went through a lot of that. I even went to where I was hurt so bad I had to take 2 weeks off of work, which anyone that knows my work ethic knows that that's not something I do. Like,
Right.
I bust my tail. I'm at work all the time. You have to send me home if I'm sick with a fever. Like, I will show up, and, that was just always me. And so that kind of took me back. And then my grandmother had passed away going into 2017. So that shook me because, she was someone really important in my life. And then going into after that, I just felt like, I wasn't able to have faith in my leadership because I was at a real tough time where, like I said, I'd been with the company for so long and was kind of just making these moves where I was just moving up and up and up, and my brain looking at that next step. Well, I was losing guidance, I was losing support.
Right.
We weren't in a great spot of what I was doing, and when I was asking for help, I wasn't getting it. So, I was doing my part, but my support wasn't there, and then that's when I really started questioning things. And once again, it had to do with my wife. To be able to stand, and me even moving up in the first place had to do with her, because she's the one that said, she's like, I don't get it, you're so intelligent, but you don't take that and execute with that.
Right.
And,
Right.
and a lot of that is me being bored, and that's it. And there's no other way to explain it, me being bored and lazy. And she was like, you have so much more potential. And this is when we first started going out. And then, dude, before you knew it, I was moving up the chain. Like, just having that belief in myself that wasn't there.
Right.
And that took that kick from her, and knowing that she believed in me.
Yeah.
And then even when it came into this rough spot in my life, and it's right before you and I met, it got to a point where I was no longer happy at my job. And I'd always given her this, said the same phrase to her, I'm going to keep doing this as long as I'm happy. I'm lucky to be one that comes into work every day, was lucky to find someone,
Right.
and be able to do the things that I want to do.
Right.
So, man, why is someone calling preamble at 10:44 in the morning? Someone's trying to catch an early drink.
Here, I'll go get it.
Yeah. But no, ultimately, and the same thing, the same conversation. She's, I had to. It was scary for me to have the conversation, and not that I didn't think she was going to say yes or no or whatever it was.
Right.
It was just that I knew what I was giving up, and I knew I had it good where I was at. I was comfortable, and I was literally 5 minutes away from home to take on a new role that was going to put me an hour across town. And it's kind of, I'm making good money. I'm doing good things, but why do I want to make this change? And I think that was the hard part, because it was also scary for me. It was terrifying. But I knew I had to do it for my self-growth, for my self-worth. I wasn't happy with where I was. I was taking that home with me. my wife didn't deserve to hear about me complaining about this stuff all the time, you know.
Right.
And I wanted to do it for a work-life balance. Like, I didn't have it. I'd been in retail since I was 21. I didn't have holidays with family. Family came into town. I could spend a limited amount of time with them. To be able to spend that more time with her now, which is what we have, and then, you know, trips that I hope to take her on, because she loves Halloween and she loves Christmas, her two favorite holidays, and she wants to go to Disney for both. And if you're in retail, that's the time where you're cut out. Like, that's blacked out. Now, thanks to retail telecommunications, after the iPhone launched till the end of the year, you're screwed. So, you know, I had to change that, you know, and I had to change that for her, and I had to change that for us, and I had to change that for our future, you know, and it took a lot. And you don't expect to be put in that situation, just like any other situation, but it rocks you on a different level, because you feel like you've maintained a point of success, and then now, you know, like, your confidence starts to drop again, and you're like, oh, well, maybe I'm not as great as I thought I was.
Right.
And so if it wasn't for my wife, like, I wouldn't be where I am now once again. And her faith and her belief in me and her support, ultimately, it's taken me to where I'm at now, and hopefully in the next year to continue to grow and continue to be bigger and better, no matter where it takes me.
Right
So,
on. We're also going to subtitle this The Wives Show.
yes. Yes.
Thank God for our
Yep.
wives.
Yep.
But I have a question for you. Can I ask you a question about the story you told? And I want to go back to the drinking part you were talking about there. Were there moments when you approached kind of that doorway that says, here's an opportunity to stop this behavior, right? This pattern of behavior, and kind of rational thought sort of comes in where you're able to step outside yourself and go, okay, this is bad, and I got to stop this, but maybe wasn't quite enough to push the change, and you walk away from those moments?
So let's just take into perspective now versus then, or even when I got out of that versus when I was in it. There's a difference between having friends, and there's a difference between having support.
Yeah.
And so I had friends, but just because you have friends, if friends aren't motivated, if friends don't have the same views or the same outlook or the same positivity you have, that can bring you down. And so I was in a couple different spots to where I could have easily went the other way and chose not to.
Right.
Because alcohol, number one, was easier, and number two, my friends around me were all kind of the same mindset, you know.
Right.
And
you can't put that on other people, right? To say you have to, like, support me, right? Your friends are your friends who they are, but if you need support, you got to find that support.
Yeah.
And when you find it, to just latch onto it.
Absolutely.
And right on.
Yeah. So, and then this is something that you know, when we talked about too, is, you know, and like I said, if you have a group, and I think that's why we click so well, because we're both just positive people, and we're ready to see the next level, and, you know, take it that extra mile.
Yeah.
And there's so many people out there that don't have that motivation, and which is fine. That's them. That's the way they want to live their lives. That's completely up to them. But if you live a different personality like that, you have to surround yourself with that positive personality. If you want the next step, if you want the next level, if you want the gold, if you want the bling bling, you know, you have to surround yourself with people that want those same types of things and that same type of message. And honestly, like I said, that's what I didn't have. Like, I had friends that liked to drink as much as I did, but unfortunately, fortunately for them, they weren't doing the same 60 days of drinking that I was. Right. And like I said, it was just, man, they are like persistent.
It's a popular place.
Yeah, true. Everyone's trying to figure out either that or a lot of people got inebriated and left their credit cards.
They left their jacket.
Yeah, I've had to make that phone call before.
Which and also, we're not saying don't have a responsible drink.
Yeah.
Right. Because
sure.
I mean, I enjoy a drink now and again, and you and I've, you know, shared a drink together, and of course we're here at this beautiful bar, so, you know, there's a great social aspect to having a drink and have one responsibly. But just like anything, you know, you keep driving down the wrong road, really doing stuff to yourself.
Yep.
Everything else we can say is, I think, if it wasn't for this, then this. If it wasn't for this, then this. And I know my own experience. Oh, well, there was this person that said this to me, and this person who did this, and then this happened. But really, it's all me. It all comes from me.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah, I think we just wrapped up my part of the story, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and I asked you the question about finding that doorway and
Correct.
and seeing the truth and
Yeah.
oh, so to add, right, something that my wife, I think we talked about this before too, but something that my wife taught me that was a great kind of a tool that I still use, because you can be on the outside of that darkness looking back on it and going, I don't want to be back there. Like that was horrible. It was full of lies and just bad, bad, bad. I don't want to go back there. But a lot of times we retain those scars.
Yeah.
It's like when somebody compliments you and you're like, you don't know how to take it.
Sure.
Because you still have those echoes of what you thought about yourself back then, and it still kind of bubbles up to the surface.
Yeah.
And you have to know how to push it down. But something that she taught me, again, the wives show, something she taught me that was a great piece of advice is, when you are being so hard on yourself, think about this. If somebody you loved was doing the same thing and saying terrible things about themselves or really just beating themselves up, what would you say to them? Because what you would tell them is the truth, right? What you would say to help that situation is you would just tell them the truth about what you see that's good in them and about themselves. And say those things to you. Find that truth and be okay saying that stuff. And it can be horribly uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
We talked about, if you wait till you're comfortable, you'll never make a change. That can be really tough to swim against what feels like the current's going this way, and the truth is this way, and you got to push through it. So say those things to yourself that you would say to somebody that you love if they were being hard on them.
Correct. Yeah.
And
sometimes that is the case. I've had to say hard stuff to people that I really believed in because I felt like they weren't producing at the level or being
Right.
the person that I knew they wanted to be.
Yeah.
And and that's ultimately like, once again, the wife show. It's one of the things that was in my wedding vows was basically my wife helped me become the man I always wanted to be.
Right.
And it had it not been for her believing in me and me not having enough of that belief in myself, her picking me up, her pushing me, her making sure I knew my self-worth was and it goes back to her. I can't thank her enough. But then it's also, me and you have spouses, and then you have Nathan. And I tied it back to earlier. It's about a support system. I strongly believe, and I tell people this, especially young that are coming up, that the older you get, your circle of friends gets smaller.
Yeah.
But that circle of friends you have are more dependable than ever.
Right.
They share a lot of your views. And I always take it to, I have a buddy of mine that I consider one of my best friends, and I won't talk to him. Sometimes our lives are just so busy. I won't talk to him for 3 months, except for maybe texting back and forth, hey, how you doing? How's everything going? I hope everything's great,
Right.
But then the moment we hang out with each other, we're the same dumb dudes that we were, 10 years ago, and he's one of the people that I can literally have one of the most serious, in-depth conversations with. It just blows my mind. I'm like, I can't believe I just had that conversation. And then 5 minutes later, we have the dumbest conversation I've ever had in my entire life. So, but it's just, you'll come to notice that there's certain people that will continue to keep and gravitate to and spend time with and want to spend time with. And it happens. It's very organic. And I don't think anybody intends for that to happen, but you'll notice where your mind and your views are, and it just kind of goes that direction, and
you'll attract like-minded people.
Yep, exactly.
And you'll find yourself, moving away from negative influences and all this kind of stuff, because you're drifting towards, not to, I hope this doesn't sound corny, but you're drifting towards the light, right? You're heading towards something that's brighter, that connects with you on a deeper level. You yourself are radiating a lot more. And I talk about how we're commanded to be a light. We're told to be a light out in the world, but really when people go beyond what's comfortable for themselves and really just radiate, they're like lighthouses.
Yeah.
And you will attract people to you that are like-minded, that have similarities and all that, and your circle of support will grow. But you really have to start with you.
Yeah.
And
you were talking about drifting towards the light. It's kind of segue into, I guess, our passions. How we came across our. So how did if I were to ask you 5 years ago if you were going to be a Jewish Americana performer today, what would your answer have been?
I would have told you, well, if it was a little more than 5 years ago.
Okay, sorry.
I
10 years ago. Let's go 10
10
years.
years ago, I would have told you I've never met a Jewish person in my life, and I don't want to be doing music.
Yeah.
Because I didn't feel like I was good enough, and I didn't feel like I had anything to say that anybody would want to hear about. So I found this passion by trying to connect with prayer. Judaism made sense, my wife made sense, like the relationships and my son, like everything was great. And I thought, it's such a change from what was before, and there's so much I want to tell people. There's so much I want to say, and so many messages I want to communicate. And I started with writing music for prayer to help me connect to prayer. That's the whole reason that there are, if you go to a Christian church, there's hymnals full of music and all this stuff, right? It's not just one or two that are in there and they're like, these are the ones it's like there's an entire book, because you don't know what's going to connect with people, right?
Sure.
Different things connect different ways. So in our prayer book, it was the same thing. I was hearing melodies, and some of them I liked, and the others I was like, that doesn't, for me, it takes me right out.
Yeah.
So I started writing stuff to help me dive deeper into prayer and understand prayer. And then I started reflecting more on myself and understanding more about me. And then it came about putting this out in the world to try to do some good for other people. So that became such a thing, and my rabbi was like, get out, people kick you in the tail enough times and they open the door enough times. Eventually, you got to decide if you're going to walk through it, right? So my wife was pushing me, my rabbi was pushing me to get out in front of people more. And then I met Saul Kay, who's my producer, and he really took a big chance on me and produced this music. And it was funny because he said, I want you to tell your story. And I'm like, well, all the music is my story. And he goes, no, man, I want you to say it. There's a song called Unbroken on the first album, which is also called Unbroken. And he goes, if you don't write that song, I'm not doing this album. And forced me out of my comfort zone in a hard way. And ever since that album came out, it's been touring nonstop, and it's just made the world so much bigger than I ever thought it was. And it's been beautiful. But that's seeing the effect that music has on people, and I know the effect it has on me, just makes me want to do more and more and more of it. I think the best thing music can do is do some good for other people. And when you see that happening, it becomes the drive.
Yeah, and I'm a firm believer in music being that. I mean, I've read multiple articles just because health-wise in general, So I'm someone that has a background. I played the violin since I was in 4th grade up until, of course, my senior year in high school. Still got my fiddle at home.
What? I was just fixing to ask you if you guys. I know where I'm going. Let's get down,
it's gonna take a lot of brush and dust off for me to get back into that.
I'll bring you a duster.
But then I've been playing the guitar since I was about 20 or so.
Yeah.
2021. But I mean, because it was an easy transition, I'm looking at the same sort of music and coming over. So, but I've seen music. I mean, I was a part of, I went with, at one point in time to go play for some children with autism, and to see them kind of change because there was music involved. Read an article and watched a video on someone that suffered from really bad Alzheimer's, and they played, I think, music from the 20s when she was young, and she could literally start describing every single detail of what dance that they were going to be going to and who it was she was with, to a T, man. And so it's just amazing, for you to be able to impact other lives with music, I'm almost jealous, because music, I think, and music's universal. I think that's what's so crazy is music is universal. It's no matter how much you deny it. There's people out there that are going to say they don't like country. I'm not a huge fan of country, but you're lying to yourself, because there's one country song I know you've jammed in your car when you've been completely alone.
And it has nothing to do with back roads or an old
it's probably
rusty
Shania
pickup truck.
Twain. No, but no, I mean, just music is universal. It doesn't matter what it is, where it is. I've listened to anything from, I have a friend that's in a psychedelic reggae band, and
awesome.
He plays the bongos and it's super awesome.
It's fantastic.
But I mean, you name it, I've listened to a little bit of everything, and there's just so much respect for it, because it's touching someone somewhere if someone's listening to it on this scale.
Yeah.
And to me, that's powerful. That's impactful. Music can change the world, and and if you look at every culture has some sort of music behind it.
That's absolutely right.
And so, I mean, go to freaking Epcot and go through all their little cities. Like, that's all you're going to hear is different music that comes from the different parts of the world. So, I mean, that's a clear inclination. But, man, that's awesome. Like,
Thanks, bro.
I'm glad that's something you found. And, had you not found that, we wouldn't have met. You know what I'm saying?
That's
so,
true.
Like, there's a number of different things when you look at,
Man.
fate brings us together. So,
That's right. All the choices you make are a pebble in the pond, and those ripples just spread out and touch everything around it.
absolutely right.
What about you, man? Like, let's talk. I want to hear about like what fires you up and why you're doing. I don't want to get into because I want to say something about what you do, but I want to hear from you first.
Okay.
And then if you don't touch on it, I'm going to do it.
Okay, so ultimately, passions, my photography, which is something that, like you said, it's, it's that light's also kind of looking for you, and you're kind of drifting towards it, and at some point you're gonna hit it, and that's what photography was for me. I had no, like, if you would have asked me 10 years ago, hey, do you want to be a photographer? There was nothing in me that said, yeah, I wanted to. There was nothing in me that, had that drive that said, hey, let's pick up a camera, I had a friend that wanted to be a photographer, and I got on to him and said, hey, if you want to be a photographer, go buy a camera and try it.
And just start doing it.
Yeah, just start doing it. You're either going to find out if you like it or you absolutely hate it. But if you don't know, like, you're just going to keep talking about it. So what's the point, right? So it's so funny now to look back on that because, literally it happened for us because I took my wife, we went on a trip and it was somewhere kind of outdoorsy. And so my family, I love my family to death, but our idea of camping when I was growing up was going down to the beach with a couple of tents, a generator, and like we were lighting it up, like, and then there was always a nearby hotel room that in case you wanted to get cleaned up, you could always go to the hotel room and shower. So that's just, we had fun. I loved it. Don't get me wrong, but when we're kind of outdoors in the woods, I kind of didn't know how to act, and that's what I felt bad because my wife loves outdoors. And we were out there, and I'm the dude in some really nice shorts and a really nice, like, Banana Republic shirt and nice shoes. And, like, I don't know what to do out here. Like, I've never hiked before. There's canoes.
Do we just walk?
Yeah, do we just walk? What do we do here? Are we just enjoying views, drinking?
Oh,
like,
I love it.
Jumping in the pool. Like, and I felt so bad because I felt like she wanted to be outdoors so much because that was a lot of her childhood,
Right.
And I'm like, well, I want to be outdoors more. Like, you can't YouTube that. There's no YouTube spot. Someone needs to make a YouTube spot that says, how do I become more outdoors?
How to outdoors.
How to outdoors well.
Yeah.
But from there, it was like, all right, let's start going on hikes or let's just even go for walks at parks. Get out with nature. And that's when I started connecting with nature a little bit more. To me, that's when it started to hit home. And I'd get to places where I'm like, number one, this is around the corner from my house and it's beautiful. And how do we not know this? And number two, it's like, it's serene. There's a peacefulness to it. It's relaxing. Like, so at that point I was like, you know what? I think I want to start taking photos of stuff like this. And it wasn't for anyone else but myself. Like, I was being completely selfish.
Right. And so many things that start like that.
Yeah. And I was, and so I was like, you know what? I want to catch a photo of this so I can remember it. And that's where it kind of started. Like, I got my first camera the same year that we got married. And I remember, showing our photographers for our wedding, we'd meet with them to talk about our wedding plans. And, they wanted to see some of my work. They were interested. And, they were really impressed by some of the stuff I was doing. And they were encouraging me to just kind of keep going for it. And then, I was taking everyone, when they know you have a camera, every little niece and nephew in the world needs photos taken, which is good practice. So don't get me wrong, as much as sometimes it was a little annoying, but for any photographer, like, any practice is good practice, and the more you do it, the better you're going to get and the more you're going to learn. So looking back on it now, like, it was completely worth it all. But at the same time, it was friends and family that were sharing those photos with other friends and other family, and that's when people started reaching out to me and were like, how much do you charge for this? How much do you charge for that? And it was after about the sixth person, my wife looked at me and said, hey, you should probably put a price list together because this is going somewhere. And, you have a talent and people want to see more of it. So number one, that means the world to me. First of all, just that people want to see anything of what I do and any of what I didn't really even consider it art until someone kind of pointed out to me. It was actually my tattoo artist / personal trainer, and he was like, dude, what you do is art. Like, you have a composition to it, you have a foreground, you have a background. He goes, the same way I look at me getting ready to lay out a tattoo is the same way you look at you getting ready to take a photo. You don't just stop by and snapshot and then keep walking.
Right.
You see something and you want to find a way to communicate that or have someone feel the same emotion. You know, like when you tell me that you and April laughing was like one of your favorite photos, but when you look back at that photo, there's just so much emotion there, and it's so awesome. And I absolutely love that photo also. And it's just that's what I live for. That's what I strive for. And I actually started off not even wanting to take portraits. Like, I only wanted to do landscape, and it wasn't until I took a portrait of my niece and nephew at the rodeo that something about it just kind of spoke to me. And once again, it's one of those things that just kind of led me in the way. And since then, I've done weddings. I've done, cake photos for like a master cake decorator. I've done
pictures for this place too.
Yeah, pictures for this place. Pictures for your promo shots. I mean, it's just I've been involved in so much stuff. Even when I was in Chicago, I got asked to do work when I was there, doing my day job work. In the evening times, it was like, hey, can you do a job for me while you're up there? So I'm like, yeah, sure. I had all my stuff with me and shot, like I said, numerous weddings, quinceañeras. It's brought so much to me and allowed us to, me and my wife love to travel. We love to road trip. So, I mean, it just kind of played into it even more and more. And it fires me up even more and more knowing that, hey, this is the next step. This is the next spot we're going for. And, I don't know, it's been truly a blessing and something I just completely did not expect.
Something about Stephen's work, and I got to brag on you for just a second. So he mentioned earlier on that we had that we spent some time around Harvey and did some post-Harvey work, and I did a benefit concert that he helped film and take pictures of. But also Stephen documented a lot that was going on during Harvey, and some of the images that he captured are so incredibly powerful. And it was one of the first things that really drew me to what you do. Is you do this beautiful thing where you care so much about what is happening, not just from it's a picture standpoint, but the subject on the other side. There is so much care for the sincerity in that moment of truly trying to communicate what's happening. How do I share this with other people? How do I communicate this feeling or this emotion or this landscape? I mean, your landscape work is phenomenal. I just love everything you do, but you have so much care, integrity, and honesty in the way that you capture stuff. There's a picture of me that you took, and it was not plain. It was funny. We were doing these portrait shots. I would sit there and I would try to pose and stuff, and he wouldn't take the picture. And we did a couple of pose shots, which were great, but the majority of the time he would just wait till I started just doing stuff and relaxing and chatting, and then would snap things. Amazing. And there's this moment where I'm looking down the side of my guitar, like off to the side, and it's probably my favorite picture I have of myself. For me to say that I like a picture of myself is hard. It's still hard. Even though I have to do that, and I put myself out there and do all this stuff, it's still hard for me to say that I like certain things about myself. I still hesitate. Yeah. Because you get into, well, I don't want to seem this way, or I don't want to, but it's just, it can be tough. But that picture, I thought, captured so much that was going on in the past and the present, and it told a story. And man, I appreciate that you took a shot at me that I actually like.
It's my pleasure, man. It's, was it the black and white one?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's actually one of my favorites. So, like, I'll go through it and I'll edit it the way that I feel like it needs to be edited. Yeah. And then there's certain ones that I just feel like I don't know what it does. It hits you and you're like, man, this would be dramatic if this was black and white. This would just like, and that's just for me. Once again, me being selfish. Not even saying, hey, Joe's really gonna like this. He may absolutely hate it, but I'm going, man, I really dig this. And if it were black and white, it would just tell like this story. And that's why it means a lot to me that you said that. Is it's there to tell a story. Like, you feel the emotion in it. You feel kind of what's going on. And I love the candidates, I think, honestly, more than anything. There's so many people that will come to me and say, hey, I really like this photo. Can you redo this? I was like, some of those photos were just spur of the moment, and someone got lucky with the shot, which is what we do as photographers sometimes. But the shots that I take when no one's looking or no one's paying attention are my
So
absolute
good.
favorite shots.
So good. And you capture the expected stuff, right? Because like
Yeah.
people hire you and you're like, I'm going to get the shots
Yeah,
they
yeah,
want me
for
to
sure.
get. Like we're
Yeah.
getting that. And then
But
you
I
have
just
all
keep-
this flavor
yeah.
that happens around all of that. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Anyway,
It's
I
fun.
want to say
Thank you.
thanks.
I appreciate it.
That's when you're pursuing your passions and you're doing things with integrity and honesty and bringing who you are to what you do, whatever that thing is that you want to do. Get it done. Like go and do it. Like this, I believe this is the time that we've got. The time that we're here is the time we've got. The only thing from a faith perspective, the only thing Judaism really teaches you, unless you go into like a lot of side writings and stuff, that really teaches us about what happens next. We're just taught that the soul goes back to God who gave it. We don't even know what that looks like.
Yeah.
So it's this time that we've got here that we have to take care of, and you've got to live the best way that you can with the time that you've got. So if there's a passion, like get after it.
Yeah.
You know, don't give up on dreams that you've got. Follow opportunities and take your dreams with you.
Sure.
Right? So anyway, man, I just love what you do, and I think
Thank you.
everything you do says all of that.
I appreciate that. And, you know, it's funny you talk about, you know, just passion and following things that you want to do. And you mentioned this earlier, too. It's not easy to do and want to take that step forward. I mean, one of the things we do now is we're lucky enough to be able to volunteer because of my new job.
Oh, yeah.
And that's something we always had talked about wanting to do in the past, and especially since we love dogs, we love animals. And, you know, it's funny because me being away in Chicago for all those, you know, for all the trainings and stuff like that, the very first weekend I had off when I was actually back in town, and I asked my wife, I said, what do you want to do this Saturday? You know, I'll have my first Saturday off out of retail. I'm not held down to any bounds or anything like that. And she goes, I want to go help out at Houston Huts for Mutts. And I said, right on, let's do it. And so that was our first experience with that. And, you know, now we're at the point where, you know, we're able to help spread their message.
Yeah.
They're becoming something big, way bigger than we are. And it's to me, it's awesome. It's a great message, great place. HoustonHutsForMutts.org. Check them out if you can. It's been a blessing to be able to help and stand alongside a lot of those volunteers.
Right on.
But it's also been rewarding. I know me and you talked about the love for dogs, and you know how no matter what happens, that you know when you get home, you know no matter how rough your day is, you know your dog always comes to you with that tail wagging, is super excited to see you, and you know it's just something about it, and to I don't know, just to be able to help those dogs out that I know that are in some really bad circumstances. They don't hold it against anyone. They don't.
Right.
They don't.
They
You
don't
know.
blame anybody
They don't
for
blame
it.
anybody. You know, it's just
Or at least
the
not
life
that we
they're
know
living.
of.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah,
we're yeah.
yeah. But I mean, you know, it's good to be out there, and it's good to be on the front lines and be able to help. And like I said, it's not, and you'll learn more if you go to the website. It's not your typical situation.
Yeah.
These are owned dogs. These a lot of times families love these dogs. There's just not a lot of know-how or not a lot of you know financial ability to be able to take care of these dogs the way we take care of them. And just cultural, it's a cultural difference, and it's so crazy how close it is to some of the high points in town to be able to have that cultural difference.
Yeah.
So it's impactful, and you all can see it for yourself, and I'd love if anybody can come out and help. You know, Houston Huts for Mutts, and any helping hand we can get, we would definitely take. But that's
Do it.
just a shout out to them for a little segment there.
Yeah, right on.
Cool.
There's this great shirt I saw one time that said, God, please help me to be the person that my dog thinks I am.
Yeah. Exactly. I know. My dog thinks I'm like a superhero every time I come home.
Oh, thank goodness you're here. I
Yeah.
didn't know how to work anything. And,
Yeah.
oh, it's so great. Oh, you won't believe it. Dogs are the best. Cats are debatable, but no, I'm joking. No, cats are great. Whatever your pet is that you got, I'm definitely more of a dog person. But
Yeah, you and me both. So, well, let's go ahead and close it out. I'd
Yeah.
love to talk about basically how you can find us. So you can find me at sdirwinphotography.com is my website. You can inquire about anything on there that has all my work. You'll see a lot of Joe on there. So, but also some great shots from the bar here. So if you want to see what some of their delicious drinks look like from their mixologist, definitely check that out. And also find me on Instagram at Irwin Jr. SIRWINJR. I post a lot of my recent stuff that's going on there.
Amazing stuff.
Kind
So
of
good.
what's going on. Sometimes quirky, sometimes weird, but it's a lot of fun. I have fun with it, and I have fun doing what I do. How can they find you, Joe?
Well, I'm glad you asked. You can go to joebuchananmusic.com. That's my website. A lot of videos and pictures and all kinds of good stuff on there, and a blog roll. You can find me on Facebook at Joe Buchanan Music, and also on Instagram as Joe Buchanan Music. And if I did my job right, you can go to Google and just type in Joe Buchanan, and I should be the first thing that comes up. It's funny, Google figures out what kind of music that you do, and they put down what kind of artist you are. Like, no matter what you send them, they still come up, and it says Christian gospel.
Really?
Yes.
Nice.
But that's where you can find me. Just Google it, find Joe Buchanan, I'm on there. Connect.
Don't Google me, because I'll know exactly what you're
I did that. I did that, and I was like, oh, hey, that's not bad.
So, something I don't have on here, and I'm going to totally sidebar Joe right now. And I'm stealing this from a show that I watch, and he'll know this the moment I ask it.
Oh, we're going to find out if things hot dog?
No.
No?
But that's funny. But what impact do you want to leave on the world?
Wow.
That's why I didn't write it down.
Yeah. I think that, you notice I kept looking at your notes.
Yeah.
I think that when I leave this place, I want to have done right enough by both my wife and my son, who did so much for me. And I want to have left people with the message, the knowledge, and the faith that they're good enough to overcome any amount of darkness, and they're strong enough, they're not broken, and that they've got this. I want to leave people with a strong faith in themselves and what they're able to accomplish, and that we are absolutely better together than we are on some island somewhere.
Absolutely.
You know, I hate to add to that, because I want to ask you, I want to say one thing. One of the most important things for me to teach my son, and my wife and I agreed on this early on, was that you're going to make mistakes, but you are not a mistake, right? You're going to make a bad decision. You are not a bad decision. You're going to feel sometimes like your value is small, but your value is greater than you can ever know. You know, the voice that you've got, the voice that God has given you, the voice that you're blessed with to do great things in this world changes lives. You change lives, including your own. It should start with your own. You are more powerful and stronger than you can possibly know. And that's the truth. That is the absolute truth. And it's uncomfortable, but it's the truth. And you have to make a decision to own that or not. But that's the truth. Yeah.
It's powerful. I like that.
Thanks, man.
So I guess reverse question for me,
Yeah.
since I put you on the spot.
What impact would you leave the world? What would you do?
Ultimately, you know, I want it to be a positive impact, of course. Whether it's through, I think ultimately it's faith in humanity, man. Like, it's, you know, I could do all the photos in the world, and I can take some of the greatest masterpieces that get known out there, and to me, that won't make a difference unless it's some sort of positive light. You know, if someone looks at one of my photos and says, man, that makes me happy, or if someone, you know, looks at one of those dogs that we help and said, man, you know, I'm really happy that you guys took care of this dog. You know, I want it to be able to be something everlasting, like long beyond when I'm no longer here, and I don't even need my name tied to it, but I just want it to be some sort of positive message that we as a community, like, can shed the light, we can pass it on, and to build that culture of picking others up. Like, you know, we saw it a lot after Harvey, you know, and a lot of me and you communicating after Harvey about how we were helping out others, and I think that just kept me going. Like, I knew it was backbreaking work, but one day I was like, you were asking me, and I was like, oh, I'm at this place, and I asked you the next day, and you're like, I'm at this place, and it's just, to me, that's a light, and that's what we continued to see, on the news for a little bit, but then eventually the negative found its way back in there, and that's where a lot of this came from, is 60 days, 90 days, 6 months from then, there's still a lot of people that are going through stuff, and still have, you said last time, had piles of trash laying on their front, door still, and we just want to be able to try to shed that light and shed that positiveness, and let people know that there are tough times. There's definitely tough times, and we've been there, and we've lived through them, and we've come out better on the other side. And we both know in our future there's going to be even more tough times.
And still climbing out of things
and still
too.
climbing
Like
out.
still trying to
Agreed.
be here.
But that's ultimately what this is we're here to try to shed the light and be able to pass it on and share it with as many people as we can.
Yeah.
And ultimately, thank you for all of y'all's time, and thank you for watching us wherever you're at. If you need anything from us, or if we can help in any way, feel free to hit us up either on our websites or on our Instagram handles. And if you have any questions or any directions that we can point you in terms of support, or any ways that we might be able to help or just let you vent. But other than that, I would say have a great day. Have a little bit of coffee left. I'm pretty sure Joe's out.
I'm
this
out.
time.
I'm down to the ground.
Yep, down to the ground. But thank y'all for joining us. Hopefully this is episode 1 of many more to come.
Yeah.
But cheers, man. Thank you for being a part of this.
Okay. Thank you. I'm gonna take a sip of the grounds that I have left. There's something in here.
You mean chew on the grounds? That's a wrap.
That was great, man.